Let me ask you something that people avoid even tomorrow. Would you feel proud of how you spent today? That question is hard because deep down, we all know that time is the only real asset we have. Not money, not fame, not even relationships. Those things can be gained and lost, but time, once spent, it's unrecoverable. You can't rewind it, and you certainly can't bargain for more. Every second that's passing as we speak is a piece of your life slipping away. Irreplaceable, yet irreversible. People go around, their bank accounts pass on their possessions with fierce obsession, but their time, they give it away freely. People who drain them to tasks that mean nothing, to scrolling, binging, compare, and complaining. Why? Because they don't see time as currency, but it is. In fact, it's the most expensive one. You're trading time for everything, for success, for growth, for happiness, and sadly, sometimes for regret. Philosophers call it temporal value blindness, our inability to fully grasp the cost of wasted time until it's too late. Psychologically, it makes sense. The brain treats time as abstract while treating money as concrete. So when you spend 3 hours watching sense or gossiping, it doesn't feel like a loss, but it is. It's not just 3 hours. It's 3 hours of becoming, of building, creating, gone forever. Ask any successful person, any visionary, any leader. You'll find one trait in common, a ruthless respect for their time. Jack Ma, for example, once said, when you're young, work hard. When you're older, work smart. But and not waste time. That mindset separates the average from the extraordinary because time is the raw material of everything you will ever build. Now, here's the hard truth when we waste our lives, not because we want to, but because we don't feel the waste. It hurts to scroll endlessly. It doesn't sting to procrastinate one more day. But imagine if you saw your time to wait, a terminal patient sees there. Imagine if every hour came with a price tag, like a countdown. You live differently, wouldn't you? You wouldn't tolerate shallow conversations. You wouldn't spend years chasing someone who's indifferent to your present. You wouldn't binge watch mediocrity when you could be mastering your craft. You wouldn't wake up late, drift aimlessly, and go to bed with a hollow feeling of having done nothing, hoping tomorrow feels different. Because it won't, unless you change. The world doesn't owe you clarity, purpose, or motivation. You have to carve that out with intentional use of your time. And it starts with treating time as your most sacred resource. Just as you wouldn't throw stacks at cash to win, don't throw your hours into habits. People or paths that don't elevate your life. You see, most people think the tragedy is that life is short, but the real tragedy is that we make it even shorter by wasting it. We shrink it with hesitation. We cut it down with indecision. We dilute it with meaningless distractions. And in the end, we don't run out of time. We just run out of ourselves. So here's the challenge, and before you scroll, ask, is this building me? Before you say yes to that plan, ask, is this aligned with who I want to become? Before you waste another day busy, ask, is this progress or just movement? Because at the end of your life, you won't remember the noise. You'll remember the impact. And that impact begins with how you spend your time today. Don't just manage your time. Honor it. Have you ever noticed how much energy we spend trying to be seen, trying to be liked, trying to be approved by people who often even know who they are? It's one of the most subtle ways we waste our lives. By living for external validation, we post something and then we check. Not one twice, but then again and again, waiting for reactions, for hearts, for shares, for comments. And it's not just online, it's in our relationship, even the way we dress, speak, and dream. Slowly, we begin to measure our worth through someone else's eyes. It becomes a silent addiction. And like all addiction, it robs us of clarity. Because the more you chase validation, the more you forget who you really are. Jack Ma once said, if you don't give up, you still have a chance. Giving up is the greatest failure. But I'd argue there's something even worse. Giving yourself up, your identity, your true individuality for the sake of applause. Psychologically, we are wired for approval, evolutionary. We survive as tribes, not as individuals. So acceptance means safety. But we no longer live in a world where your survival depends on what your neighbor thinks of your choices. Yet our minds still operate like it does. The result, we end up building a life that looks good to others, but feels empty to us. That's how people waste decades. Pursuing career hate because it looks respectable. Staying in relationships that drain them because it looks stable. Or hiding their passion because it doesn't look realistic. And somewhere along the line, the version of himself that was once curious, bold, and uniquely gets buried beneath extensions. What's even more dangerous is that validation never satisfies. It's a hungry host. You feed it once and it demands more. You achieve something and it applauds for a second, then moves on. You're left needing the next high. The moment you rely on applause to feel worthy, your happiness becomes negotiable. Now, it doesn't mean you should live in isolation or ignore every opinion. Wisdom becomes the difference between feedback and control, between learning and people-pleasing. The real power lies in being open to trope, but never enslaved by approval. Jack Ma built Alibaba in the face of ridicule. No one believed in him. Investors laughed at him. Even his own friend did his vision, but he wasn't building for applause. He was building for impact. That's the key. When your focus shifts from being impressive to being impactful, everything changes. You no longer need validation because your mission becomes building your ego. We often ask, what will people think? But the more important question is, what will you think of yourself? When it's all said and done, will you be proud that you lived true? Or will you be haunted by the versions of you that were never allowed to breathe? You weren't born to be liked. You were born to be real. And being real is risky. It's uncomfortable. It won't always be popular, but it will be powerful. So if you want to stop wasting your life, stop performing. Start showing up for yourself, for your purpose, for your truth. Because the moment you stop living for applause is the moment you start building something that actually matters. Here's what it all comes down to: approval fades. Authenticity doesn't. Choose wisely. And failure is the word most people fear more than anything. Not because it hurts physically, but because it wounds something deeper, our pride, our self-image, our illusion of control. And so many people spend their entire lives trying to avoid it, playing safe, taking the easy route in their lane. But let me tell you something that's as real as it gets. Avoiding failure is the fastest way to waste your life. What we often forget is that failure is a wall. It's a mirror. It reflects back who you really are when things apart. It shows you your limits, but more importantly, it reveals your possibilities. The problem is most people look into that mirror and walk away in shame. But those who grow, those who rise, those who make something meaningful out of lives, they stare into that reflection. They learn, they adapt, and they move. Jack Ma was rejected from over 30 jobs. Even KFC said no to him. He failed his college entrance exam. Most people will stop right there, label themselves as not good enough, and disappear into a quiet, regretful life. But he didn't, because he didn't see failure as a dead end. He saw this dead as feedback, as preparation. And that's exactly what it is. You see, psychologically, failure feels like identity death. Your brain reacts to it almost the same way it does a physical danger, because your ego believes it's dire. But the truth is, it's not your identity that's threatened. It's your attachment to a version of yourself that's too small to carry your potential. Failure forces expansion. It shatters the comfort zones you didn't even know you were trapped in. And while it may burn, that fire is necessary. It purifies. It burns off what's weak, what's false, what's not meant for the next level of your life. But here's where people go wrong. They personalize failure. Instead of saying I'm failure, they say I am a failure. And the moment you confuse the two, you surrender your power. You let one event, one setback define an entire identity. Think about this. What if Thomas Edison had believed a failure after his first 100 attempts at the light bulb? What if Jack Ma believed he wasn't meant for business after being laughed out of a meeting? The world would be a different place. Philosophically, failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of it. It's baked in the process. You cannot grow without breaking something. An old habit, an old mindset, an old belief about what you're capable of. Failure is how life yourselves into someone worthy of the dream you say you want. So the next time you fall, don't panic. Observe, reflect, extract the lesson, and then move with more wisdom, more grit, more clarity. Because you only truly fail when you refuse to try again. Everything else is simply progress in disguise. Don't waste your life avoiding failure. Don't waste your life trying to protect a perfect image. The world doesn't need your perfection. It needs your resilience. It needs the version of you that has been tested, broken, and still stands up stronger. Let failure speak to you, but don't let it define you. Let it teach you, but don't let it stop you. Because at the end of the day, the scars of failure are better than the regrets of never trying. Fall, learn, rise, repeat. That's how you build a life worth living. One of the most damaging beliefs you can carry through life is this. Because of where I come from, I can't go far. It's quiet, but it runs deep. It sits behind your hesitation, your self-doubt, your fear of dreaming too big. And that belief, left unchecked, is a slow death sentence for your potential. Let's make this clearer. Your past is not your identity. It's your starting. No matter how dark, broken, or uncertain that starting point was, it does not have the power to dictate where you end up unless you head over the pit. Jack Ma is a prime example. He came from modest beginnings. Failed example was told no more times than people are willing to try. But he understood something most people miss. Your potential doesn't care about your history. It only cares about your decisions. What matters is not what you've been through. What matters is whether you let it break you or build you. Psychologically, many people are chained by what's called identity foreclosure. That's when you lock yourself into a belief about who you are based on early life circumstances. Your family, your failures, your environment. You say things like, I'm just not good at this, or people like me don't get those kinds of opportunities. And every time you say it, you reinforce a mental cage around your potential, a cage you built, and one only you can dismantle. But potential is not fixed. That's the lie. Potential expands as you evolve. It breathes with you. It grows with you. It awakens when you step in unfamiliar territory, when you say yes to things that scare you, when you stop identifying with what happened to you and start identifying with what can happen through you. The truth is many people waste their lives recycling the same old narrative. I've always been this way, they say. And that's a reason to stay that way. As if the person they were 5 years ago has to be the same person they are today. But you are not a fixed character in a static story. You are dynamic, evolving with the power to rewrite your trajectory at any moment. You have to unlearn the voice in your head that says you're not qualified. That voice ain't true. It's just familiar. And familiarity isn't the same as reality. Just because it feels real doesn't mean it's accurate. Sometimes we'll feel like your personality is just a defense mechanism built in response to trauma or failure. And when you challenge that, when you start acting in alignment with who you can become instead of who you've been, you become dangerous in the best way. Jack Ma didn't succeed because of perfect credentials. He succeeded because he stopped using his past as a limit and started using it as leverage. That's a mindset shift. That's a refusal to stay small just because you started small. And that's available to you too. So ask yourself, what old version of you are you still carrying around like a badge? What outdated story are you telling yourself that's keeping your future hostage? You can honor your past without being trapped by it. You can learn from your pain without wearing like a uniform. At some point, you have to stop arguing for your limitations and start advocating for your potential. Because here's the truth most people never realize until it's too late. Your past is a chapter, not the whole book. Turn the page. We live in a world that rewards distraction. Notifications, endless scrolling, and that entertainment. It's all designed to steal your focus. And the most dangerous part, it feels good. It feels like movement. It feels like you're alive. But there's a difference between motion and meaning, between stimulation and growth. The hard truth is, if you don't learn to discipline your focus, the world will decide your future for you. You were born to direct everything around you. You were born to direct your energy towards something that builds you. But that takes intention. It takes intention. And most people don't want to hear that because discipline sounds hard. It sounds rigid. But it's not punishment. It's free blind is what turns potential into progress. It's what separates people who have talent from those who actually use it. Anyone can dream, anyone can start, but not everyone finishes. Not because they aren't capable, but pulled in their distant directions, chasing short-term pleasure while long-term goals collect on a shelf. Think about it. How many hours have you spent this week doing things that added zero value to your life? Not rest, not recovery, but pure distractions you turn to when you're bored, stressed, or avoiding something that requires effort. It's normal, but it's also costly. Every moment spent in distraction is a moment stolen from your growth. Jack Ma often talks about working, not just hard. But you can't do either if your mind is cluttered with noise. He once said, your employees should be smarter than you, but you must have the vision and discipline to lead. That applies to your life too. You are the CEO of your mind. And if you allow distractions to run the show, don't be surprised when your life feels like a mess of missed opportunities. Here's the psychological piece most people overlook. Your brain is naturally lazy. It loves routine, especially easy. Dopamine fueled feelings like entertainment, mindless scrolling. The more you feed it, the more it craves it. But when you practice discipline, when you force yourself to choose a difficult, meaningful path, your brain rewires, it adapts, it begins to crave growth, and that's when everything changes. Discipline isn't just about schedules or habits. It's about the quality of your attention. It's about choosing what matters over what's convenient. It's about being able to know not just to people, but to your own impulses, because growth doesn't happen when you feel like it. It happens when you show up regardless of how you feel. The people you admire, those who built something lasting, those who live with clarity and strength, they didn't get there by accident. They made sacrifices, not once. Daily, they gave up temporary pleasure for long-term peace. They said no to the noise so they could say yes to their purpose. So if your life feels scattered, if your goals feel distant, if your confidence is fading, it's not a sign that you're incapable. It's a sign that you need to reclaim your attention. Take it back from the distractions. Direct it towards something that demands your best, because without potential stays locked. Your goals remain wishes. Your life becomes a collection of almost and maybes. But with discipline, you become dangerous, focused, unstoppable. In a world built to distract you, discipline is your superpower. Use it. Most people are obsessed with building a lifestyle, cars, clothes, vacations, followers. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting a comfortable life, the tragedy is that many never think beyond it. They focus so much on living well, they forget to live meaningfully. Because here's the truth, and your lifestyle dies with you. But your legacy doesn't. You see, we weren't put here just to consume, compete, and coast. There's something deeply human about the desire to contribute. Something that goes beyond survival or status. Legacy isn't about being remembered for your name. It's about being remembered for your impact. The quiet ways you shaped others. The ideas you brought to life, you left in the room long after you were gone. Jack Ma once said, help young people, help small guys, because small guys will be big. Young people will have the seeds you bury in their minds. And when they grow up, they will change the world. That's legacy thinking. It's the mindset of someone who understands that success without significance is hollow. That building something meaningful isn't just about numbers. It's about ripples. But here's the problem. Most people are too busy chasing the next level of comfort to ever pause and ask a deeper question. What am I really building? And who benefits if I succeed? Psychologically, we're wired to seek immediate rewards. That's why lifestyle is so seductive. Too good to flex it. Legacy, that's long-term. Intangible, it requires a nation. It requires maturity. And most of all, it requires sacrifice. Legacy asks you to stop living just for yourself. It asks you to stop making decisions based only on pleasure or convenience. It asks you to think generationally, not just personally. And that level of thinking is rare, not because people aren't capable of it, but because they've never been challenged to step into that space. When you operate from a legacy mindset, you start making different choices. You think about how your time is spent, not just what it produces. You consider the people you're influencing, whether you mean to or not. You become more aware of the values you're modeling, especially when no one's watching. And let's be clear, legacy doesn't mean you have to be famous. It doesn't mean you need millions of followers or a billion-dollar business. Legacy can be a live with such clarity and courage that those around you can't help but be changed by it. It can be raising children who know how to love deeply, starting a business that puts integrity before profit, writing something that outlives your voice, mentoring someone who goes on to do what you only dreamed of. The impact you make doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be real. Ask yourself, if you disappeared tomorrow, what would you leave behind besides debt, data, and digital footprints? Would your life have spoken for something greater than comfort? Would your effort have planted seeds that will grow long after you're gone? Because that's what this is all about. Not just waking up, not just working hard, but working towards something that transcends you. You can chase lifestyle your whole life and still feel empty. Or you can choose to build something that echoes quietly, powerfully, permanently. Don't just live to be seen. Live to be felt, even after you're gone.